Nakaba, why are like half your characters more interesting in the past than they are now? Before we hop into this discussion on the wasted potential of the goddess Elizabeth, please do me a favor and leave your own thoughts on Elizabeth's wasted potential in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Now, let's get into it. What's up guys, I got the pencil here, and yeah, it's time to talk about another character of 3,000 years past that is super cool, but we just don't get enough out of them. That's the thing that disappoints me the most, and it is the goddess Elizabeth. And here's the thing. I admittedly wasn't that interested in her off her initial appearance, really. And by initial appearance, I mean the ones we saw in Droll and Gloxinia's flashback, or King and Diane's flashback to Droll and Gloxinia's time. That Elizabeth just seemed to be another version of modern Elizabeth who was super pacifistic, didn't want to harm anyone, didn't want to hurt anybody, just had interesting mind manipulation powers, which came out of nowhere, but not really nowhere. It makes sense. But the thing is, it's really the Bloody Ellie line. Like the way Meliodas brings up in chapter 315, hey, come on now, you're the Lord of the Demon Realm, aren't you? You should know what they called her there, Bloody Ellie. And I'm like, huh? And here's the thing, it sort of makes sense because a few chapters before, well, not a few chapters, many chapters before, but chapters before, it was implied that Meliodas and Elizabeth fought. There was a thing that happened, and assumedly, Meliodas just, I mean, he was a smoke demon. So he could have been running around looking for smoke. But at the same time, I feel like that has to do with more with Elizabeth going around being the Bloody Ellie than Meliodas actually going and wanting smoke himself. I don't know. This seems very, very strange. Like, what was the Bloody Ellie? What changed? Like, there's a missing link even bigger than Prime Meliodas' missing link. Like, at least with Prime Meliodas, we have hints of what he was like. Like, Escanor fight Prime Meliodas, we know what that is. That is the Meliodas who was young, fun, and still enjoying fighting. The later Meliodas we get to see is more like the Meliodas of 3,000 years past, the one that was serious, bored, heartless, and just had no emotions. Then we got to see a Meliodas of more modern times, like the one that was palling around with Elizabeth, Droll, and Gloxinia, and doing the fighting in the Holy War. Like, there are so many versions of Meliodas that while I wish we got to see the development between all the versions of Meliodas, at least we have some glances on them. We know they exist. Meanwhile, with Elizabeth, there's like this one idea of Elizabeth that we know exists, which is the nice, fun-loving, I care and protect all beings because everyone's covered by the night and the day in equal measure. But apparently, that's not only it. There's apparently a version of Elizabeth who was out there so dangerous, so deadly, and so murderous that she was literally known as the Bloody Ellie, to the point that the Demon King should know her name. Like, what? What happened? When did this happen? Why did it happen? What changed it? Was Elizabeth changed by Meliodas too? Like, I don't know what happened. Really, one of the biggest things of wasted potential for Elizabeth is really her fight with Meliodas. I'm not gonna lie, because Prime Elizabeth doesn't actually have that many bouts. Like, she's implied to be the Bloody Ellie, so she was probably going around slaughtering demons left and right. Whoever she could get her hands on, she was probably murdering, apparently. But at the same time, her big fights are really her versus the Endura, which she couldn't defeat on her own. But to be fair, she was taken on two at once. I'm pretty sure this is scaling part of me coming out, so maybe not. I mean, I'm fine if y'all fight me in the comment section on this. But I think if it was a 1v1, Elizabeth could have very easily taken out one Endura, but she was taken on two. So I get why she needed a little bit extra juice from the Archangels. But that's her one big fight. And her other big fight is her versus Meliodas, but we don't get to see that. And I don't know. Nakaba has a weird tendency of alluding to things that would have been super cool. Like the panel of Elizabeth's wings like spread out and her feathers falling down over the being that is Assault Mode Prime Meliodas. Like, that is an image right there that could have led into an amazing combat scenario, and apparently did, but we just don't get to see it. Nakaba has a weird issue with that. It's the same thing with Mael. Like, we got a super hype opening to a hypothetical fight between the two, but all we get is the aftermath. This was a very much tell don't show scenario for both of them, where supposedly Elizabeth caught Meliodas off guard and did some damage to him, but we don't actually know the official outcome of that fight. I'm leaning towards Meliodas because if this really is Bloody Ellie, like, she would have killed Meliodas if she actually could have. Meliodas is much more known to play with his food, but then again, that's the thing that gets me about Prime Elizabeth. We don't know anything about her because really we get a glimpse into her so late in life. She's already met Meliodas, she's already fallen in love, there's nothing else before that. There's just context that's given to us beforehand that she was apparently a massive, and to be fair, Bloody Ellie doesn't imply that she was killing a bunch of demons, but it sounds like that to me, or at least she was more ready for violence. Because to be fair, Elizabeth doesn't really harm people ever. She didn't even really harm the Endura. She got rid of them, but that was mainly their transformation. She didn't even try to harm Enduramon, Speed, and Derriere. She just wanted to save them from the darkness consuming them. But apparently there was a version of Elizabeth who was down for the combat. Like, she literally has a whole multi-layered arc spell that's specifically made to do damage. Obviously, you have that time where she blew Derriere's hand apart, but still, she apparently was a menace. Why don't we get to see that? That would have been great to see. It honestly would have added to her parallels with Meliodas too, and give them more reason to fall in love. Because I'll admit, this may be, I'm not sure if this is a hot take, I feel like it isn't, but I don't think Meliodas and Elizabeth's relationship is built up that well. Or maybe not, or at least the original one. Like, there's no reason, at least in my mind, that these two would have gone against their clans, betrayed all they knew, sacrificed everything behind them for a good fight. I don't know, like, that's the thing. We don't really know what happened. They just kept meeting each other, I guess, and one day it just happened to be some, some schmooching, and then they got on, and that's the thing. That's cool, but I feel like a more dynamic relationship should have been developed between the two. Like, I would not have minded these two going from enemies to lovers. That would have been fantastic to see, honestly, considering these two are literally biological mortal enemies that apparently were more than ready to kill each other. We know Meliodas was out there killing goddesses with no remorse, because we actually get to see it. Nakba blesses us with a little drip, little Salt Bay drizzle of that, but we don't get to see any of Elizabeth the Menace, and I want to see that. It would have made Elizabeth's growth as a character and how it affects Meliodas a lot more interesting, because admittedly, one of the main problems I have with Elizabeth in the past and in the present, that she's just a tad boring. Like, I don't know, the whole don't harm people because people don't deserve to be harmed, while a good message for kids, I don't think it's actually that interesting to watch, which is why I feel like seeing her grow into this, or like essentially getting a story of Elizabeth falling out of love with combat would have been something cool, because it seems like it'd be a better way to tie her into Prime Meliodas, who ends up being her lover, the person that ended up getting her killed and trapped in a 3,000 year long reincarnation cycle. I feel like that would have helped out with that. I feel like it also would have given more depth to Elizabeth's character. It would have made it so that she doesn't just appear like this perfect angel at all times, but she actually went through struggling and strife to get to this status that she is now. It would have been cool to see that. It would have been great to see her slowly fall out of love with her own clan, like just bit by bit, after killing more and more demons, listening to Ludicell's prattling on about the impurity, listening to her own mother talk about how the demons are impure and how they need to die, and her slowly growing numb to it, and then meeting Meliodas and getting that spark, mainly for the fact that I feel like Elizabeth's power should have been more amplified or noted. Like, it is noted in the fact that she managed to defeat the Endura 2 at once with a little bit of help after they were just bodying the archangels. But the thing is, I feel like Elizabeth's superiority should have been more a part of her character, because reasonably, unless you can completely ignore her magic, Elizabeth de facto is probably the strongest goddess. She has the feat of fighting and apparently off-guarding a prime assault mode likely love-fueled Meliodas. As far as we know, off of what little we saw of that fight, Mael hit Demon Mark. And while that's still impressive, considering this is Prime Meliodas we're talking about, it's not enough. Like, Goddess Elizabeth really was the top dog of top dogs. But we never really get to see that. We don't get a taste of it. We get a hint of it, which is her versus the Endura, obviously. But I feel like more of it should have been a more dynamic part of her character, because, like, I believe the overpowered and simply dominant nature of Meliodas' power feeds a lot into his character. It feeds a lot into his character views, how he views the world, and how he himself interacted with the world, and how the world interacted with him. He was put on such a high pedestal because he was born with such a high pedestal. He was the first son of the Demon King with immense amounts of power. So I feel like, once again, mirroring that narrative with Elizabeth, the first and apparently only daughter of the supreme deity, the being that stands above or at least equal to the 4 archangels. Like, what was her life like? What was it like living in that sort of high prestige, being friends with people? Like, she seems to have had relationships outside of Meliodas, but we never get to see that. Jelamet, the goddess who possessed the Troll Queen, that was Elizabeth's best friend supposedly, but we never get to see any of that. There's the whole time of Elizabeth apparently being this sort of, not necessarily sort of, just this respected being, but slowly seeing her lose favor and lose power in general, or at least political power, to Ludicell would have been amazing to see. because really, just like Meliodas was leader of the 10 Commandments and honestly the alpha demon outside his dad, Elizabeth should have been too. She should have been the alpha goddess, because not only was she easily the most powerful out of all of them, especially considering Mael may only be a rival to her at noon, you also have the fact that she's literally the next in line for the supreme throne. She's the next supreme deity, but we don't get any of that. Nakaba doesn't show us any of that. How she lived, how she tried to interact, stuff like that. I feel like it would have made more sense for Elizabeth to slowly fall in love with the Goddess clan if we actually got to see it, but we don't get to see it. Like, there's so many things that you could show in an Elizabeth, well, in a Goddess Elizabeth backstory. Obviously, you have the 107 lives of Elizabeth, or I think like 105, because the first Elizabeth and the last Elizabeth is 107th, I do believe. But the thing is, you have this entire interesting, what was it like for her to meet the other races? I just thought about that. She knew Droll and Gloxinia, the two kings of the other races. Was she a diplomat that ended up meeting them and becoming friends? Did she just happen to stumble across them, one of her rebellious streaks? Like, there's so much stuff that's sort of implied, but we don't get to see, and it would have been really cool to see. I would have loved to see an Elizabeth who was a warrior, who ended up slowly falling out of love with the idea of being a warrior. I would have loved an Elizabeth who maybe through like meeting with Gotha or something like that, like her telepathy is one of the most unique ones. Like, to be fair, Meliodas sort of mimics it when he suppresses Fraudrin for a moment in Dreyfus's mind, but still, her ability to speak directly to the hearts of her mortal enemies and get them to retreat, even when they're under orders from the highest level of demon, like that sort of stuff would have been interesting to see. I feel like there's a whole meaty character locked behind that goddess wall. Like, man, Nakaba, I'll pay $5 for it. Like, legit, I just want to see it, because there's so much that you could show. Honestly, I would have loved to see more of the Celestial Realm, its hierarchy. I would love to see the rivalry slowly form between Ludoshel and Elizabeth. I would have loved to see Elizabeth's interaction with the rest of the clan, because apparently, well, we don't know, but that's the thing. We get like one little minor interaction of them, but she was friends with Tarmiel and Sariel. She seemed to have some sort of relationship with them that wasn't just, oh, I'm the princess, you two are some of my servants. But no, they actually seemed like people that would chill and talk and have conversation. Like Nakaba, I love the man. I think he's fantastic. He's an amazing author, but I think he excels the most at character writing. I believe Nakaba's character writing is fantastic, and you can get it. That's the reason I say this is waste potential, and the reason I fiend for it so hard is because we have those little hints. All it took for me to get super invested in a Goddess Elizabeth is the name Bloody Ellie. All the things that give me these ideas for Elizabeth being like a mirror to Meliodas comes from the hints of their fight and their developing love. All these ideas of her possibly being friends and like going off and meeting people and becoming a better person comes off the hinted relationships that happen and develop off screen with both the archangels and the fairy king and giant king. Like, there's so much stuff that we would love to, well, maybe not we, but I would love to see that's just locked behind a past that we'll never get to view. Because I'm assuming, at least the way Fortnite the Apocalypse is going, we're never going to get a flashback to 3,000 years ago. We may get a flashback to way before that, to like chaos times. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if we got a flashback to the young Supreme Deity and the young Demon King in that series, considering how much I feel like their remnants will still be affecting them, considering their descendants and stuff like that. But in terms of they themselves, like the time period of 3,000 years past, I think that time's dead. But there's so much cool stuff to see. I would have loved seeing Elizabeth just existing. Like, that's the weird thing. There's so much stuff in Elizabeth's backstory that could lead to so many more interesting things that it's sort of endless. Like, these stories you could write. Elizabeth the warrior, Elizabeth the friend, Elizabeth the explorer, Elizabeth the lover. Like, there's so many different things that Nakaba could do with this character to fill her up and make her more interesting, to make her a true equal to Meliodas, not only in just power, but in actual character, in actual realism and stuff like that, to give her this ability to stand equal to her main love, the other main character of the entire series. All you had to do was give her some character, and even if it was character of 3,000 years past, even if you don't want to touch modern Elizabeth, that's fine, but let us see it. I understand. You have a limited manga run, you have limited time, and Nakaba, as amazing as an artist as you are, with your no assistant having self, I know it takes a lot out of you to draw what you draw and what you do, and I know you probably have a whole ton of ideas that you keep up in your head that you just can't execute, and I fully understand that. As an artist myself who's nowhere near your level, I also have ideas in my head that I just can't end up executing because I lack the skill. But man, like a light novel, give me something like that. Just do, it doesn't have to be a manga. As much as I would love for it to be a manga, let us see more of Goddess Elizabeth, because I feel like she deserves it. For how much we have to follow her, for how important she is as a character to the narrative, the background of the series, and how she affects the modern narrative and all that stuff, I feel like she deserves better because all of this potential is just locked away. However, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm nuts? Is there anything that I've missed about Goddess Elizabeth that you would want to see? Or do you think I'm nuts? Do you think that there's no more need to see more of this goddess of 3,000 years past, and we should just let it go, focus on modern Elizabeth, see if we can fix that up? And honestly, modern Elizabeth may be getting her own video, but the thing is, I really want to focus on Goddess Elizabeth because there are so many things in it, from all her possible relationships to her possible fights to her possible existence, all the stuff like that. That's what really caught my eye about Elizabeth. The fact that due to all the little pieces we've gotten, all the literal sprinkles of sprinkles that we've gotten of that character, that has made me fiend and hunger for more. That's what I wanted to touch on. But if I missed anything that you would want to see, if you think I'm wrong, just tell me in the comment section down below. I'm super excited to hear. I'm super excited to read your comments on this one, because I feel like this is also, it's just one that's so wide and broad. You can go in so many different directions with this. I'd love to see what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.